Live here.
Live!
But we don't have to necessarily know what that means.
What's the someday of Black?
I don't
there's
know
a
that we
reason
want to-
this story happens now.
Ladies and gentlemen, the movie writes itself.
Ooh.
Well,
I'm still streaming. How do I stop streaming? No!
hello.
We made it to the first Friday, as you said this morning.
Yes.
We made it to the first Friday of January, the first Friday of 2023.
That's right. Here we are. Here we are.
Hello.
Yeah. Welcome, everyone.
Happy Friday.
Ben and Jake Write a Movie, Friday, January 6th. It's actually
1 p.m. today.
1 p.m. today. Yeah, it's a little on the early side today.
Yep.
But I counted to get us back up to date, and this is episode 49.
Oh, so next time it'll be 50 episodes.
That's right.
Amazing.
Monday will be episode.
Wow,
50
that's crazy.
on our
That's really
show.
crazy. Well, I hope everyone's enjoying this or getting something from it. I certainly am. We
too.
absolutely are, as writers. We are getting a lot from this. Even if it's just infusing our afternoon energy with energy.
With energy. you know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, before we get going with diving back in and moving forward with our script,
Yes.
do we have any kind of writer topics that we want to discuss today? Have you been thinking about
I
it?
feel like I did yesterday and I've forgotten what it was. I had something that I was going to bring up and then we got talking about other things and now I can't remember. So how do you deal with memory loss as a writer? That's
funny. Let's
have a little think about what we're going through this week. I guess, thinking about the TV project that we have going on at the moment, just about, and I think we probably mentioned this at one point last year, but just about whereby there are seasons when you can't set things up or it's difficult to even get people on the phone.
You definitely have talked about the selling seasons.
But it's interesting. Isn't it? At the moment, we're in a situation where we're back at work. Agents and managers are back at work. But we're in this period right now whereby it's going to be hard to get people on the phone because of various things that are happening. And Sundance is about to come up, and you have to wait a lot of the time to set meetings.
Right.
And it was just one of the things that I think you have to have in order to survive in this industry. Is just a great deal of patience. Again, something we've touched on in the past, but again, just worth remembering that it's never going to happen as quick as you think it's going to happen. Right. I think I even experienced that thinking back to our very first sale. We sold the script and then we waited for months to get paid. We knew we were going to get paid, but there was a deal to be negotiated and paperwork and lawyers and deal points and everything that needed to happen. It was one of those things, like we'd sold our first script for $1 million. And on Monday, I was working at the Apple store. I was like, this great thing happened. And in 3 months' time, I'm probably going to quit.
Yeah. I think you got to quit a little bit early, at least.
I did. Because I borrowed some money.
Yeah.
I was in the great position of being able to ask a relative and said, hey, this is coming. Can I borrow a few months worth of money and then pay you back when I get it?
I was thinking of, I'll riff off of what you're saying, but actually I was coming to this with the whole idea of like breaking in. And it's something that obviously so many people talk about. Our friend Nate has a whole podcast, video, vlog about him breaking in.
Yes, re-entry. If you haven't watched it, Nate Graham Davis re-entry. It's great.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And I think, kind of piggybacking on the conversation we had yesterday about how everything happens differently for different people and we all have different experiences. One of the things that I find really interesting is how people end up breaking into this profession
Mm.
and how, it's so different for
Yeah.
so many people.
When you had first suggested doing a podcast 4 or 5 months ago, whatever it was,
Right.
about a month before, I'd had an idea for a podcast we would do, which was called Breaking In. And it would be interviewing screenwriters on their very first sale and how that happened, because it is so different for everybody. Our experience was so unique.
Yeah. I think that's super fun. I think we could add a whole like separate, I guess,
Sister podcast.
a separate podcast, a
Yeah.
sister podcast of just those interviews. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Nate actually does a lot of that stuff on his,
Mhm.
and I think his most recent podcast might even be called Breaking In. I can't remember, but he does have a thing that's similar to that. But specifically, I do think that it's really valuable. I think it's really valuable for people to hear stories that are inspiring, perhaps, and also hear stories that are perhaps difficult and challenging, and also just to kind of reinforce that it does take time. You do need patience.
Yeah.
And sometimes you hear of people who break in right away and you're like, oh man, like I wish that had been me, or I wish I could do that. And you just don't know the circumstances.
That's right. I remember we were looking at, who were we looking at? We were looking at a very successful young screenwriter. He's in his 20s. And we were like, man, this kid.
Right.
It's funny when you're in your 40s, you start referring to people in their 20s as them kids. But we were looking at it and they were like, oh, he actually, he graduated from USC and went straight to work at like an A-list actors production company as an intern, and had a really great way. And it's not to in any way deny talent, but you go, oh, that's what you were doing during that time. You were writing on the side, and then you were in the industry here. And then a bunch of things, happened whereby you could use that, and it preparation meets opportunity, and bam, and it does for some people at a young age. I mean, for us, I think it's slightly different. I didn't know I wanted to be a screenwriter, really.
Sure.
Initially, although I had been writing screenplays since I was at drama school. I was 21 when I first started writing a screenplay style, but it's not what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And I think, I look at my story, I guess, of breaking in, and what was really interesting was that there was I guess I would say I had one of those moments that could have been oh my God, like, how did that happen? Where I wrote my very first screenplay. It was literally the first movie I ever wrote, sold it, and it got made at 24, 25.
Right.
So like, that's like literally like one of those things where you go, how the fuck did that happen? And it was obviously, opportunity and networking and all of those things. And we've talked about that on other episodes. But what was interesting about it was that it was a quick start and then a massive stall. And that movie, while it was like you said, I didn't plan on being a screenwriter. I was originally, I moved out here to be an actor, and that movie was supposed to be my way to be an actor.
Of course.
But obviously, and we've talked about this many times, it was instrumental in me realizing that actually I really loved writing and I wanted to be doing that. But then it was 10 years between that movie and our next sale. I mean, 10 years, and I think that and then from that sale to The Princess coming out being 8 years.
Yeah.
So from movie to movie, I mean, we're talking like, what did I just do the math of? 18
Was it 2006, the first?
The Thirst came out in either 2005 or 2006.
Yeah.
We sold it in, I want to say 2004.
Right.
And then Winter's Night we sold in 2014, and then The Princess came out in 2022. So from 2006 to 2022.
16 years.
16 years between releases.
Yeah. And it's funny, isn't it? Because occasionally you'll see a screenwriter whose name perhaps you don't recognize, and you'll go and look at their thing and be like, wow, they had this one credit there.
Yeah.
Nothing. Then years later,
Right.
but when you're in it, you go, these people were working the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
They were selling things, they were getting set up, they were getting open writing assignments, they were creating things that just never got made.
Right.
Because getting things made is hard.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And I think that you look at people who quote unquote break in, and I think it's really difficult to know exactly when you've broken in unless you have one of those, big splashy moments. I mean, I would say that first sale of The Thirst, I thought I broke in, but I didn't.
Sure.
And interestingly enough, like that movie and that sale did not propel my then partners and me towards lots of general meetings. It didn't propel us towards even an agent.
Yeah.
We had a manager and a lawyer, and even though we had a movie in production, we couldn't get I think we had like 3 meetings. And yet I still, like, being in my 20s, was like, I'm gonna quit my waiting table job now because I'm a writer. That was a dumb move. Don't do that. I ended up back at that restaurant pretty quickly. But the thing is, Winter's Night, on the other hand, was a break-in moment where it really was like, oh, okay, now shit's real.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
And I think that a lot of people's experiences are more the thirst multiplied by however many more of those smaller projects might happen over years, and then it's like a slow break-in that sense.
Right.
Like, I don't know what it would have looked like had I just kept kind of writing it at that smaller scale.
Yeah.
Going with smaller production companies, smaller independent production companies, slowly building up, doing an option here, selling a little manuscript there. I think my ambitions were much higher, and so I was like, I want to write big movies.
Big movies. Absolutely.
But again, it's like breaking in as a screenwriter is incredibly challenging, and
it is,
and take a really long time.
Yeah, and it's that thing is thinking back to again, thinking of Atomic Habits. There'll be a period where perhaps it's just kind of a bit boring, trying and trying, trying and trying. And thinking back to that book, he was talking about a time when he interviewed a coach, and he said, what makes a really great athlete? And the coach said, someone who's willing to put up with the boredom of turning up to practice.
Interesting.
Someone who's willing to put up with the fact that it's just a lot of the time, it's not glamorous and exciting. It's kind of boring.
Yeah.
And I think, I think there is absolute benefit in thinking in those terms. I'm just going to keep going.
Just perseverance, right?
Just persevering and keep knocking on doors, keep writing scripts until something happens, Yep.
And there's no guarantees.
There's no guarantees.
You can train as much as you want at the attempting to be an Olympic gold medalist, and there's no guarantee that you'll ever be in the Olympics at all. But your passion and your perseverance are what keep you going. And I think it's your patience and also that perseverance will hopefully get you over the finish line.
Indeed.
And then I think what's really interesting too is that just because you've broken in doesn't mean
you stay in.
It stops. Like the same things you were doing the day before you broke in need to continue to be the same things you're doing after. That perseverance, that patience, that constant keeping the passion alive. I mean, sure, certain things change in terms of the types of meetings you have and the projects that you're able to potentially set up. But we've been experiencing it ourselves. It's like patience, patience, patience. And
I always like the thing that Derek said once, which is you work hard so that you can work hard.
Right.
And I always really like that. It's like, yeah, you work really doesn't. You don't work hard so you can then go, got it easy now. You work hard to break in so that you can work really hard to make a living from being a screenwriter and pay your bills doing that and providing for your family. And as you said this morning, sending your kids to college.
Right.
Like that's the plan. And it takes a bunch of hard work. And
it does.
And that's the truth.
And that is the truth. So if you are thinking of becoming a screenwriter, don't.
No, dude.
I'm just kidding. It's a joke.
It's about going into it with your eyes open.
That's all it is.
Ultimately, that's what it is. I don't think I was prepared for the truth of being a screenwriter. Even down to the fact that when we saw Winter's Night, we were like, oh, we have some more ideas for movies. We have to pitch them. Fuck, we've never I mean, done a couple of pitches in the past, but it's just things like that. Like it's just really, really preparing yourself and just going in with eyes open, I think.
Totally.
Which is why we're doing this.
And I think it's time to segue into some of this.
I
think we could try to move a little forward on our outline today. Yesterday we ended, and there was a topic that you were like, and we'll talk more about that tomorrow. Honestly,
don't remember. Yesterday was a day. Yesterday was the past.
Yesterday was the past. Today is a new day.
I think it was more about us just going into the document today and just going through.
We were talking about the prologue, right?
We were talking about the prologue. We had a conversation back and forth. It's really interesting because we had that friendly debate about backstory and exposition.
Right.
And you brought up Kyle Reese and the dream sequence. And just before we got on, again, I've just been really enjoying Raising the Stakes, the Jonathan Stokes YouTube series. Really excellent. And the one I watched yesterday was, 9 ways to do good exposition. And today was 6 ways to do bad exposition. And then in that one, he referenced that movie.
Oh, that's
he goes, when I dream, I don't relive events from my past and then wait, like it's and again,
some people do. He may not, but
I don't. Do you? Do you relive memories from your past in your dreams, or do you relive locations? I mean, I relive locations.
I would say most of the time I actually don't know what my dreams were, but some people, like my wife Michelle, remembers like every single dream she has every day. I think different people dream in different ways, but I will say absolutely I have dreamt about events from my past. Now, are they like moment for moment, like as if I'm reliving like a movie? No, because they're dreams, and so there's dream, like I think, kind of random weirdness to them.
There is, and that's it, and that's generally a dream.
It wouldn't necessarily be like people saying things word for word or stuff like that. But even going, okay, there's a, like you were saying, a location or people in that location that actually did potentially happen. I don't think it's completely unbelievable that people would dream about things that happen to them. I mean, I think
I don't know. It was
things.
interesting, you know, like to think that, you know, I'm reliving a memory.
Oh, that I agree with this guy whose podcast you're watching.
I do because it's my experience.
I'm saying I don't know that I agree.
Sure,
with
totally. Yeah.
says,
But it was interesting because I absolutely do dream of locations. I dreamt this morning I was in my gym and I was finding cigar butts everywhere. Sure. But that didn't happen to me. That was just a random thing. It was like the location and this other thing is happening. And generally, that's the way. In fact, that's how I dream pretty much all of the time. I don't. But it was just so, you know, it was interesting just to kind of go like, oh yeah, like, do people dream like that? Really? Anyway, but he used that example of going, this was exposition. But again, just asking the question. I'm not really getting sucked into the exposition conversation again, but it was an aspect of, is it stuff that the audience really needs to know? Or is it stuff that the writer feels, you know, like, is it, again, if it's conversation.
Who is this guy? What's one of his movies?
But what's funny was that in the start of it, he references one of his own movies. He says, just so you know, he's like, I'm not going to talk about things that I'm not guilty of myself. Jonathan Stokes is a working screenwriter. As well. He's a thoroughly nice chap. I spoke to him on the phone once, and he wrote Wildcat, The Last Hurrah, a movie called El Gringo. So yes, and he had one that sold just last year or the year before, but I think it was on the podcast. So anyway, he's a professional working screenwriter and
sure.
Anyway, but I really, again, which is interesting about kind of going, for what purpose exposition? But anyway, but yeah,
I mean, I would say, like, it's funny about the dreams. It's like, how many movies are there over the history of movies whereby a dream has been used
many
to convey past events?
We are using it in another spec that we're working on at the moment. You know, things from the past. It's not visual. It's done with audio. But you know, someone wakes up in a sweat. You know, and I guess the thing is we've seen that kind of thing. We've seen what Carl Reese does in The Terminator, for example, so many times that saying, well, how many has it been done in? It was like, yeah, sure, it's been done a lot. Does that mean it's the best version of it? Does it sit into cliche? The bolting upright from a dream, you know, like, no one does that. No one sits up straight like a jack in the box.
Sure.
That's something we see in film.
You know what happens to me sometimes? I mean, again, this is just my own personal experience. Do you ever, I mean, I actually do jolt awake sometimes.
I do.
Especially dreams where I dream that I fall out of bed.
Falling?
And I go, and I might not sit right up because that's such a weird choreography that somebody... like, I don't know why they do that, but in a script you might say they bolt awake, and to me that's going
totally,
you know, and I've absolutely had that dream
many times. You know, if I die in a dream, if I'm about to drown in a dream,
I've never died in a dream. That's interesting.
Well, it happened once.
Interesting. I've never actually died. I fall, but I don't actually, and like at the moment of like impact, I kind of like go, but you know what's interesting? I've never had one of those like falling dreams where you're just falling. Mine is literally like I roll off the bed and I hit the ground. Like, it's not like a dying fall. It's more like I actually wake up thinking I fell
falling out of the bed, for sure.
You know, but I also, you know, speaking of like what's interesting about thinking of the past, so I will still to this day have dreams about being either a waiter or a bartender.
Totally.
And I will be at the bar that I worked at with the people that I worked with in almost an identical situation.
Totally.
Now, did that exact situation happen to me? I have no fucking clue.
Sure.
I don't remember. I have no idea. But the emotion of that situation, and usually it's like the waiter's nightmare, right? It's the moment where you're so slammed and you can't, and the computer system stopped working, and the guy's fucking yelling at you because they want their drink, and you know, it's like that kind of like tension of emotion.
Yeah.
What was interesting about that is if my character was in a movie and I wanted to convey the fact that I used to be a waiter or a bartender, I would absolutely be able to put that dream in there authentically. Now, what that would do for me is give me history. This is what I used to be, even if I'm like, my character now is a billionaire Elon Musk type. But in the past, I used to be a waiter, and I still wake up from the waiter's nightmare dream. You know,
Sure.
the moment itself may not be authentic, but the exposition that comes out of it is.
But the question is, ultimately and always, is this the best way of doing this thing? Could you show your Elon Musk character being nice to a waiter or understanding what a piece of lingo meant that only people who work in kitchens or
in this imaginary script? No,
but I'm just using that, I'm just using that as an example, going like, yes, you can do I have the dream, and also how can I show that?
It all depends. Again, it's the emotion of it, right? If you're writing about a character who still has nightmares about being
a warrior in a war,
or at war, I mean, like here, like it's a great example. The most common, I would say, thing that I've seen and is that kind of war dream, right?
Yes.
The actual content of the dream, like I'll even use Kyle Reese for a moment, and I can't. Even though I watched it a few months ago, I couldn't tell you at this particular moment exactly the content that happens in that dream. But I will say he's running.
Twice. There are two, aren't there?
Well, the one where he's dreaming, yeah, there are technically. He does fall asleep like twice and has.
He's in the car.
The first one he's in
the car, and the person's on the back shooting at the hunter killer. That's the
right.
first. Yeah.
So that dream. Maybe it didn't happen that way. It doesn't actually matter.
That doesn't actually matter.
The point of that dream sequence is to show, number one, that's what he's still scared of.
Yeah.
That's what he's still feeling. That's the thing that he's here to do, is to stop that. And so when he wakes up from that dream, it's not about in fact, there almost is no plot in that dream, is there? It's more about the emotion and the visuals. And yet, expositionally, what did it tell us as the viewer? Told us about the future. It told us about who Kyle was in the future.
The plight of mankind.
The plight of mankind.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would argue, at least for that one, and the second one, I think, gets in a little bit more specific in his dialogue. But interestingly,
there's no dialogue in the second one. Even in the second dream, there's no.
Just the picture. He's holding the picture, right?
Holding the picture.
But so here's an observation about that too. And actually, this is a really good conversation because it goes to good dream sequences. Sure. I would actually argue that those two dream sequences are a good use of dream sequences because they tell you about the emotion of the character without being so specific to an event that happened because there's no dialogue.
Really?
There is he's remembering the exact words that he said at the exact time.
There's a really subtle thing I like that Jim Cameron does in the Terminator with that dream sequence and something that you see at the end.
Yeah.
Which is the dog.
Yeah.
Kyle Reese comes in. He's remembering life in the Resistance. He comes in and he puts his hand to the dog. The dog sniffs him, and they go on. A moment later, the dog starts going mad, barking its fucking mouth off.
Right.
And someone comes in, pulls off their thing, and it's a Terminator, starts gunning everyone down.
Right.
I don't even think anything of it. But in the end scene, when she's there in the car, she's got a dog with her.
Well, because there's another moment. There's another moment that you're forgetting, which is in present day. The dogs start barking at the motel, and you actually do learn. And I can't remember. I feel like there's a piece of dialogue where or at least because the dogs are barking at the motel, that's what tips him off to the fact that Arnold is there. And so there's an implication that a dog can tell the difference between a human and a machine.
Yeah.
And I don't
it's
think
never
there's
mentioned
dialogue about it.
It doesn't happen once.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't happen once.
But you understand completely why she has that dog at the end.
Oh, really? And it's anyway.
100%. It's like that's her alarm system.
Totally.
If the Terminator ever comes for her again, she's going to have a dog with her.
Exactly.
Yeah. No,
exactly. So,
cool. Anyway, dream sequence. The point is, we were talking about the prologue, and our prologue actually is not a dream currently.
No, it's not.
So it can actually happen literally the way it happened.
And it's interesting because as I was showering last night, as a visual for all of our listeners and viewers, I was thinking about Hellboy again. You said, how do you feel about the prologue and Hellboy? And what's interesting to me was, again, the film starts with this.
Yes.
It's the way the story begins. And it does many things. And in that particular one, it sets up multiple protagonists in the story. It sets up the mentor figure of Professor Broom. It sets up Hellboy. And it sets up two of the villains. Perhaps three of the villains. It's Zod and the gang.
Right.
Which is actually what we're doing here. Setting up one of our primary protagonists, and we're setting up our villain, and we're going to understand why they're going to be what they have in the past that's going to...
Yeah. It's interesting because I've been noticing a lot lately as I'm watching movies that sometimes the opening on the villain can be really effective. Especially I notice in crime or spy style thrillers, that kind of movie. I like opening on the bad guy actually, because you get what we always talk about in terms of what your opening should be. We always are like, we want to set the audience's expectations for what is this movie, right? What did you just get yourself into? And here's where we're going. And it's interesting. It's almost easier to do with the bad guy than it is with the good guy. If you want your good guy to go on a long journey.
Absolutely.
If you start with the bad guy, you don't have to do 48 hours earlier or whatever. Anyway, point being, we had talked about potentially going back and adjusting some of these Act 1 things so that we can continue to push forward into Act 2.
Totally.
And I think that it's important to address them.
I remember what it was that we were going to talk about. It's the Sam character.
Okay.
Really coming to a good place. And I have some concerns, and it regards to the demon character too. So, currently, our demon character, who we gave a name, and I can't remember her name.
We actually called her Lilith briefly, but I don't think that's her final name either. It hasn't sat well with me.
No, it was I can't remember. Anyway, I thought it was something else. But yes, so demon Charlie's character was a demon, now lives as not a librarian, but she owns a little bookstore in a little small town. And is trying to fit in where she's in a relationship. There's a not stepdaughter because she's not married, but there is that she's trying to be Susie Homemaker in one sense. That's a challenge for her currently. She's wrestling with what that means, but that's interesting. We've not seen that kind of demon before. Then what we're proposing is that our Sam character, our Rose Byrne character, for example, what is she? Because again, we want to juxtapose. Well, actually, surprise! You're the Antichrist. What I guess my concern is that not being too similar for both of those characters. You're the Antichrist, but you're a quote unquote soccer mom, and you're the Antichrist, but you're a demon, and you own a small little quaint bookstore in bumblefuck nowhere. And so my concern is that they feel similar. So I just wanted to voice that. As we
I think it's a
proceedings.
I think it's a really valid concern. Well, let's talk about what we're trying to do with these characters. So the idea is conceptually and fundamentally that we want to have the what if the Antichrist was this person you'd never expect them to be?
Completely.
And what if a demon who didn't want to be bad anymore was the only person who could stop them
Completely.
or save them?
Yeah.
And so in order for the Antichrist to be someone that you wouldn't expect them to be, you're probably going to go in the direction of someone who is good.
Yeah.
However, is there a version that feels even more unexpected? I'll use an example of I don't know that this is good, I'm just throwing it out there, a scientist, a doctor, someone who brings life into the world, or is there, is there, an academic, a professor, someone who's a religious studies professor? I don't know. Again, just tossing ideas out to go. Actually, our Antichrist. I mean, look, there's the version, and I laugh because it's so the version that like I could see a TV show about, but there's the version of the cop. Like, oh, the Antichrist is actually a cop. I mean, that's a unlikely comparison as well. Someone who's trying to actually do the opposite, to stop crime and stop chaos.
Yeah.
But is actually the bringer of the exact chaos that they're trying to stop. I mean, that's a really interesting potential thing. I mean, like, Sam could be fucking special agent for the FBI. And you go, wait a minute, an FBI agent's the Antichrist? That's interesting too. I think there's a lot. I guess the point I'm saying is that there are a lot of versions of who she is. Now, flipping over to the demon who doesn't want to be bad anymore.
Yeah.
Again, the core of the emotion of who she is that she doesn't want to be what a demon is supposed to be. Demons have a purpose. Their purpose is to bring chaos, disorder, destruction, with the goal of one day unleashing the Antichrist and allowing hell to take over Earth. Right? They're bad. This demon is like, I don't want that anymore. So then you go to the question of, well, then what does she want? And what we had decided in this arc of this character is that she thinks she wants Susie Homemaker life, but that's not being authentic. We had a long conversation about this idea of her denying her authentic self, and that her arc being that she realizes that she can be a demon and also not bad. That she doesn't have to pretend to be something else. That her natural existence as a demon doesn't require her to be evil.
Sure.
And so, what is the best way to display that at the beginning? Well, she would. If the idea is that she's going to discover that actually she doesn't have to give up being who she is in order to be who she wants to be, then you would assume that in the beginning we would see her forcing, as we currently have in the outline, although it doesn't have to be in this way, but she should be forcing herself into a awkward, non-authentic life because that's what she thinks is what she wants to be. I want to be a good person. Now, we also talked about the why of that. We said that we came up with this whole mythology that some demons start to grow empathy, and that in hell they literally, if you start to show any signs of empathy, they wipe you out because they don't want it to spread like a disease.
Absolutely.
And that this is actually not a conscious thing that has happened to our Charlize character, that she had the disease. She caught the empathy disease. And she couldn't help it. So when she left demonhood, there were kind of the main reason for her leaving at that time was probably to save her own life at first. And also because the empathy part of her wouldn't allow her
do this anymore.
to do this anymore.
Right.
It wasn't because she decided, I want to be human.
No, absolutely. She had no choice.
Correct.
Yes.
So there is a version whereby, and we go all the way back, although I hate to do it because it tears down the house, but there is a version where she is Dexter living out in the woods, you know, where she is trying to do what is not authentic to her. But at the same time, I go, well, is that going to be the best version? Because I'm not actually able to see her in conflict with that part of herself if she's a loner. I don't get to see her necessarily struggling to be a good person when that's not necessarily who she is in that kind of specific way. I don't know. It's like both characters.
Yeah,
I agree. They should not both be, I've got the husband and I'm trying to be a good mom.
Yeah.
Does not work.
Eileen, let's just talk about her for a second, because we were going back and forth, and there were multiple versions, you know. So let's just talk about the other version. Just bring it back up again. Just for completeness. Just to look at it, and again be able to put it in comparison with who. And really, what I'm thinking about is that the core of this movie, the core relationship in this movie, exists between this demon and the Antichrist, who should be different from each other. That's why this conversation is happening. There should be you're not like me, I'm not like you, you know, but actually maybe we're more alike than we knew, type thing. But, you know, if it were, I longed, you know, I was beginning to empathize with humanity and regret the course of my actions. I caught the empathy disease. Oh no, gotta save my own self. I'm leaving. Like you said, it's not that I wanted to become human. I just couldn't do this anymore. Right. So if it wasn't, I wanted to become human, I wanted to have those experiences, is it right that we should then see her trying to have those experiences and trying to have those things?
Well,
so maybe there's a version which is, you know, but I rejected that life. I don't fully fit in there.
Hold up, because she should want something. Like, she has to have a desire at the beginning of this movie. Like, even Sarah Connor has a want at the beginning of the movie, you know?
Yes.
And I don't think that the antithesis of a want leaves a character without agency. And even though when she will want to stop the Antichrist.
Yeah.
I want to know how that change of desire conflicts and creates drama to her present day want when we meet her in 2023. So I don't want to just have a character who is just chilling, for the lack of a better word, you know?
No, I mean, I absolutely hear that. I really do.
You know, even if her want is to stay hidden.
Yeah, sure.
Then there needs to be a why. Is it that people are coming for her? Is that she's worried found multiple times?
Yeah.
Who's at stake? Is it just her life? Does she then go around? Does she have traps and, you know, is there shit all like? I would need to see an activeness for that desire, but then, and I'm just playing that line out.
Yeah.
If my want is to stay hidden, then the conflict is by going out into the world to stop the Antichrist, I am literally going to risk not achieving the want that in fact, I'm throwing that want out the door.
It's not awful.
Wants.
It's not awful. You know, it's really not. I've been, you know, keeping myself safe and hiding myself away, only engaging with humanity when I absolutely have to.
Right.
You know.
Well, what's the best way? We talked about this a little with the boyfriend, right? There was an aspect of witness protection, right?
Totally.
Like,
sure.
And I guess it's like, what's the smartest way to stay hidden? Because there's the complete off the grid, I'm Gene Hackman, an enemy of the state guy.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And then, interestingly, when I refer to Dexter,
hiding in plain sight.
He hides in plain sight.
Yes.
And he has a girlfriend. He lives in a,
now,
you know.
I think that for me though might be the thing that maybe I'm still struggling with is that version, that it doesn't have to be the Dexter version of it. You know, it can be I'm hiding in plain sight, but I go.
Well, it's like Highlander, right? Like
it's Highlander.
Highlander also kind of is going by a false identity. He moves around. He's somewhat hiding in plain sight. He knows that eventually the gathering is going to come, but he doesn't want to face off with the Kurgan if he doesn't have to. People find him. He's not seeking out the fight. So, but he does, like, he has an antique store.
Yeah,
you know, like he goes to a fucking wrestling match.
Totally.
Like,
there are practicalities to living in the world today. You can't just, I mean,
you can.
I guess you can.
Person that lives up in the woods.
Lives up in the woods and, you know, hunts for food and.
You can, but people, but that's not a good way to, that's actually probably more suspicious.
In today's world, you'd be, oh, you're the weird guy who lives up in the woods.
And there's no way to get completely off the grid from satellites, and especially if you're talking about demons. Like, you know, like, how are you going to complete, like her thing would be like to blend into humanity almost.
Yeah.
To disappear amidst the crowd that is humans.
Right.
You know? But I do think it's that desire to never go back, to not never be found. Back.
Yeah.
Like, she can have referencing another script that we're working on, but the 50 locks on her door.
She could have 50 locks.
You know, like, she could have.
Took it out of that script, Ben. We're putting you right back in this one.
You know, she could have.
Nothing is wasted, Ben. Nothing is wasted.
You know, security cameras all over the house.
Yes. I mean, you know, it's funny. It's not this. But the scene I was seeing, like the opening after the prologue, the opening scene I was seeing was she's being shown round because she has to move every. We talked about versions. Like, if you're immortal, you can't stay in the same place for more than 10 years.
Not like 10, 15 years.
10, 15 years.
There's certain people that don't look like they age much. You know, if Halle Berry plays the role, it could be 20, 25 years.
But yeah, you know, like there is but the scene I'm thinking of is like, is she being shown around the new place by a realtor? It's like, you know, and she's going, it's got all the things she wants.
Right.
You know, it's a way, but it's close enough to town when she needs stuff. You know.
So here's the thing that I'll say. So I like all of this, and I think I'm down, but, and here's the big but.
You have a big but, Ben.
I actually don't. I'd like a little bit more of it. Anyways. But the stakes at the end of the movie, as currently constructed and as currently outlined, which it seems we won't get to those pages again.
Ever again.
But the scenes as currently outlined, the stakes at the end, the Zod uses these characters that we've created that Charlize cares about against her. It's the old Superman. If you're Superman, you have no other weaknesses, but your weakness is the people that you care about, right? And that's what Zod does, both in Superman and in this currently. Right. So what taking those characters out ultimately does is removes anything in this life that she actually cares about, except for when she starts to care about Sam. But, and
Yeah.
I'll put the but back in there, currently as constructed, she also has the desire to potentially kill Sam if she needs to. And there is the ticking clock of, I don't know whether I can do this or not. So holding Sam hostage isn't really stakes, because if I have to kill her, I have to kill her. I mean, of course, I'd feel bad about it.
Yeah.
So it's just about figuring out, and I don't want it to be the end of the world or the stakes, because look, it is.
Well, it becomes
it is already.
What are the personal stakes?
Correct.
But the personal stakes, I hear what you're saying. But those personal stakes in that version of the movie only come at the end. Only come when Zod says, I've got your boyfriend and her kid.
Well, but they start in the beginning, because that's why she leaves them.
I know, but yeah. But what I think really in terms of like creating an even more powerful personal stake is what's at stake for her personally if she fails at the beginning. You know, what does it mean to her to do this thing? What demon is she excising from her soul? What is she making up for? What is the reason that she personally does this mission? I mean, I guess to your point, if the end of the world happens, these people will die.
Mm-hmm.
So it is present in that sense.
Right.
If Sam reveals himself to be the Antichrist and fire and brimstone rain down from the heavens and cats and dogs living together, you know.
People she cares about will die.
People she cares about will die. So I hear that. I do.
You almost would need to figure out how to make, like, going back to the Terminator,
mm-hmm.
when it's revealed that Kyle Reese is actually in love with Sarah Connor.
Yeah.
And that he's loved her forever, basically.
Yeah. Which is weird,
but whatever. When that's revealed, you understand that this is not just about saving the world. This is personal for him.
Mm-hmm.
He's willing to give his life not just for the world, but for her.
Because he loves her.
Yeah. And that, I think, elevates that whole third act. Because, yeah, Judgment Day might come, but this is about saving Sarah.
Mm.
And so, with our current cast, Sam and Charlize, I don't know that version is possible.
So I guess is there another way into the same room via a different door and go, well, if we are creating this Sam character as being somewhat different and being Susie Homemaker, could she have a family? Now, it doesn't become the stakes for Charlize, and I acknowledge that, the personal stakes for Charlize. But it's not just like, oh, I'm going to become the Antichrist. It's like, oh, and hell on earth is going to happen, and my whole family and everyone I love and care about is going to die.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind giving her a family. Actually, it's totally fine.
So can Charlize's stakes be, if I do this, I will finally be able to atone for all the lives I fucking took in my past, and have that be her personal thing, also saving the world. And for Sam, then it's, yes, sure, I want to stop the end of the world from happening and stop becoming the demon of hell, but also I get to save my little daughter who's got a soccer game on Saturday that she just can't miss.
I mean, for Sam, yes, I think that works completely. For Charlize, I would be... So what's interesting about her journey in this movie is that the stakes where she goes to kill Sam at the beginning are the same at the end. They change when she realizes that Sam can be saved.
Yeah.
But when she first seeks out, when she leaves her home to go to Portland,
she's going to kill her.
She's going to kill her. And the why has got to be the stakes.
Mm-hmm.
And that needs to be personal as well as professional. I don't know that I buy the loner in the woods caring enough about hell coming to earth unless it has something to do personally with her. Now, and I don't think it should be so selfish as just, well, if hell comes to earth, they're going to find me and they're going to kill me. That feels too selfish to me. Although it is fine. I mean, it works. But, like, I'd rather there be if I don't go kill Sam right now, if Zod finds Sam before I do, and this is all to your act 1, right?
Yeah.
If I don't find Sam before Zod does, what happens that will essentially be the worst thing that could happen in my life? As a demon already. That's what we would need to find. Because in the current version, if I don't find Sam before Zod does, this little kid who I've become the mother of and this guy who I really care about, they're going to become slaves in hell. Like that, I go, okay, I have a job to do and it's to save you guys, and meanwhile save the world. I don't know that that's the best.
I guess I'll go back to something like a Midnight Run for a point, though.
Sure.
For a second. So at the beginning, I forget his name, Jack Walsh.
Right, yes.
Jack Walsh is just doing it because this is a job. It's a well-paying job, and, you know...
He doesn't need the money for anything?
He does have this goal, this dream that you learn.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to own a coffee shop. Wants to get out of this life.
So but there you go. That's why he's doing it. Just because you don't learn it doesn't matter.
However, something then supersedes that, which he learns over the course of the movie, which is that actually I could take down the person responsible for ending my career as a cop. And that then becomes...
So, obviously there are differences in these movies, clearly.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know that Charlize's goal will, because what she wants to do is the same in Act 1 as it is in Act 3, stop the Antichrist. Completely. So the why and what that means can get bigger. It means taking down Zod 2 is great.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, like, Walsh at least has a personal reason for taking this job because he really wants out.
Mm-hmm.
And if he does this job, it'll pay him enough, he can get out for good. And that has a personal thing. And then it escalates into, well, actually, I could do even more.
Yeah.
What I don't know yet, and what I think is definitely missing right now, is that I don't know if we take out the boyfriend and the kid, which I'm perfectly comfortable doing, I need to replace them with why am I doing this now? In Act 1, why am I taking the job? I don't have to. Why am I taking it? You know, like,
why am I going to
risk getting caught?
Stop the Antichrist.
And why am I going to risk being found by the demons that I've been hiding from for 100 years?
Yeah.
You know, the reality is I'm a demon. If the Antichrist comes and humanity dies, I don't die with them. I'm a demon.
We're going to have to answer this question tomorrow because we're not going to get there in 1 minute and 10 seconds.
Yeah, no, I know. It'll be Monday, though.
It will be Monday. Yeah, sorry, Saturday tomorrow. What am I saying? I established at the beginning that it was Friday.
I know, right? The first Friday. Well, you know, it's okay. It's
okay.
All right. Of course, you know.
Yeah.
Once again, a day of no pages, but yet another example.
Yeah.
Of the challenge of cracking a story so that it's fucking awesome.
Absolutely.
And I think these are questions that we have to keep asking.
Yeah.
We have to keep asking them all the way through every draft that we write.
Yeah.
And better to ask them now than after we've written 100 pages.
Yeah.
And then have to go back and take these characters out because we realize there's a better
I
way.
know, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
You know,
Yeah.
but I do want us. I like the idea. I mean, look. Also, from a modern perspective, I could see Sam being not only a professional of some kind, cop, doctor, lawyer, whatever, and being a mom and a wife
Of course.
and having all of those things at stake. Her
Absolutely.
life that she's worked so hard to get,
Completely.
her the people that she loves the most in her
Yeah.
life, as well as the human race, which actually means something to her because she's human. You
Yeah.
know, like
Absolutely.
she has tons of stakes.
Yeah.
And she's the one responsible, which is why when we get to a point where she's almost going to take her own life, which
Sure.
we should at some point,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
that becomes really strong.
Indeed.
But
Yeah.
Charlize is a different story at the moment. I'm not
Sure.
sure why she's doing this.
Great. Okay. All right. Good.
And that's our show.
That's our show.
That's our show. All right. Well, I'd love to find a guest for next week. We'll let you guys know if we
Yes,
do.
we've been talking with some people.
And everyone have a great weekend. Jake, have a great weekend. Romeo and Jake. All right. Thanks, everybody.